Sludge. Cold, viscous, industrial cement sludge with a sharp, pungent odor. This is the smell of death. That heavy, oppressive sensation still feels like an invisible giant hand gripping my throat. I remember it vividly. In that dark foundation pit dozens of meters deep in the heart of Manhattan, that son of a bitch Trenton Graves stood at the edge, puffing on his expensive Cuban cigar. He looked down at me with the same expression one might give a rat that had just been crushed. Jax, you're a top-tier structural engineer. Always chasing perfection. Trenton exhaled a plume of smoke, his lips curling into that nauseating signature sneer. So, I've decided to help you out. I'm making you the strongest load-bearing pillar in this $10 billion building. Sleep tight, brother. With a snap of his fingers, tons of quick-drying cement cascaded from the mixer like a waterfall, mercilessly flooding my mouth, nasal passages, and lungs. It was a suffocating agony enough to drive one mad. My ribs snapped one by one under the immense pressure, and my ears were filled with nothing but the muffled sound of my own bones shattering. Ha! I bolted upright in bed, gasping for air like a fish tossed onto a parched beach. Cold sweat had completely soaked through my pajamas, and my heart was racing inside my chest like an out-of-control V8 engine. I'm not dead? Or rather, are the mattresses in hell actually this soft? I raised my trembling hands. No concrete. No broken bones. These hands, belonging to a top-tier engineer, were perfectly intact. I could even feel the warm pulse of blood in my fingertips. I whipped my head around to look at the digital clock on the nightstand, which clearly displayed a row of green digits. October 14th, 2021, 8:30 p.m. Good God. This is more ridiculous than a B-list Hollywood sci-fi flick. I've actually gone back 3 years? Back to when Trenton's Miracle Tower project had just launched, before any of the conspiracies and betrayals had even begun. I rushed into the bathroom and splashed my face violently with cold water, looking up at the mirror to see a face that was young, vibrant, and not yet ravaged by concrete. The phantom pain of suffocation from my past life still lingered in my lungs, while a fierce will to survive and an extreme rage surged wildly through my veins. To cover up the scandalous truth of his embezzlement of billions in project funds and his use of substandard construction materials, Trenton hadn't even blinked before burying me alive in the foundation. Trenton, you snake. This time, I promise I will grind your empire into powder, inch by inch, and let you taste the meaning of true despair. I hissed through gritted teeth at the mirror, just as this nameless fury was about to burn my sanity to ashes. A cold, emotionless mechanical voice suddenly echoed in my mind, as clear as if someone had installed a loudspeaker directly onto my cranial nerves. Ding! Strong survival will and desire for destruction detected from the host. My craft system successfully bound. Loading real-world environmental data. What the hell is this? Minecraft? That pixelated block game that took the world by storm? Before I could even let out a classic American expletive, that mechanical voice rang out again. Real-world spatial matching complete. Congratulations, host Jax. You have successfully unlocked the highest level of authority. Creative mode. From this moment forward, you shall ignore the physical laws of the real world. Possessing godlike abilities such as infinite resource acquisition, instantaneous destruction, and creation from the void. Have fun in the real world. I stood frozen in place, water droplets sliding down my chin and onto my chest. A system? Creative mode? Had I been deprived of oxygen for so long that my brain was now completely filled with sludge, driven by a mix of absurdity and fury? I turned around and stared intently at the load-bearing wall in the living room just outside the bathroom door. It was a wall poured from high-strength reinforced concrete, so hard that even swinging a sledgehammer at it all day would barely chip the surface. Fuck the laws of physics. And fuck Trenton. My rage needs an outlet right now. I took a deep breath, and without any protective gloves, I clenched my right fist and used the momentum of a running start to slam it hard against that grayish-white load-bearing wall. According to standard American medical common sense, this punch should have instantly shattered my metacarpals, followed by me being rushed to the ER to howl in pain for half a month. However, a miracle happened. A dull thud echoed. There was no spray of blood, nor the agonizing pain of breaking bones. The moment my fist made contact with the wall, a web of black, grid-like cracks materialized out of thin air across the hard concrete surface. Just like in a video game. Immediately following that, a crisp clack rang out, and a sight so bizarre it made my jaw drop appeared. In the thick load-bearing wall before me, right where my fist had struck, a massive 1-meter-cubed square gap had neatly vanished. The cross-section was as smooth as if it had been sliced by a laser, and even the severed rebar inside was perfectly flush. And there, suspended in the air within that gap, floated a miniature, slowly rotating stone cube. I swallowed hard, my hand trembling as I reached out to touch the floating cube. With a whoosh, the cube vanished into thin air. Simultaneously, a translucent game inventory interface appeared in the bottom right corner of my vision. In the first slot sat a stone block icon. No quantity was displayed, because in creative mode, everything is infinite. My God, I stared at my unscathed right hand, then at the gaping square hole in the wall, falling into a state of sheer, frantic ecstasy. If all of this was real, if I truly possessed creative mode privileges in the real world, Trenton Graves, that $10 billion real estate empire you're so proud of is nothing more than a pile of cheap Lego bricks in my eyes now, ready to be torn apart by hand at any moment. The game has only just begun. The autumn wind poured into the living room through that perfect 1-meter square hole in the wall, cooling me down slightly. Creative mode, this is nothing short of a dimensional strike. But I know full well that toppling an old Wall Street fox like Trenton, with his connections everywhere, requires more than just me running around tearing down buildings. In this capital-driven American society, money, or rather, massive liquidity, is the only lever that can truly move the world. System. If I remember correctly, in Minecraft, as long as I dig down, I can find diamonds, right? I asked in my mind, looking at my hands, which could now be considered divine artifacts. Ding! Answering host Jax. The real world has fully synchronized with the system rules. As long as you dig down to a specific depth, there is a probability of generating and dropping diamond organ. In creative mode, any item you collect can be directly purified and replicated infinitely. The system's voice remained cold, but to my ears, it sounded like divine music. I grinned, grabbing a black hoodie from the closet and throwing it on. No need for shovels. No need for heavy excavators. And certainly no need for any geological exploration licenses. In the dead of night, my backyard was the largest natural mine in all of New York. Walking to the backyard of this suburban detached villa, I found a patch of soft lawn and took a deep breath. Let's get to work. I punched the ground. Asterisk thud. Asterisk a block of dirt topped with grass floated up, and a square pit 1 meter deep instantly appeared in the ground. I jumped into the pit and threw punch after punch downward. Dirt, cobblestone, granite, blocks of various materials crumbled like tofu under my fists, turning into floating drops that were automatically collected into the inventory at the bottom right of my vision. There was no resistance. Not a hint of fatigue. Like a human tunnel-boring machine, I delved straight toward the depths of the earth at a speed that defied all scientific common sense. After digging down about a dozen meters, the surrounding light had been completely swallowed by darkness. Strangely, however, not only did I feel no sense of suffocation, but my vision was able to clearly catch the outlines of the blocks even in the dark. Ding! Target mineral vein detected. As the system notification sounded, a rock in front of me shattered with a bang, revealing an ore inside that shimmered with a captivating, deep blue light. Diamonds! Suppressing my racing heart, I threw a punch at it. A crystal clear, flawless raw diamond the size of a pigeon egg hovered in midair. I reached out to touch it, and the diamond entered my inventory. System. Duplicate this diamond to the limit for me. Command confirmed. Creative mode item duplication in progress. In my inventory, beneath the icon representing the diamond, an infinity symbol instantly appeared. If I wanted to, I could scatter these things across Times Square like handfuls of beans. Half an hour later, I climbed back up the stairs I had dug and returned to the backyard lawn. Manhattan was still ablaze with lights tonight, while in my inventory lay enough top-tier diamonds to buy out half of Wall Street. However, turning these stones into US dollars that could circulate in the real world was a problem. Trenton's eyes and ears were everywhere in New York's financial system. If I walked into Tiffany's with hundreds of pounds of top-tier diamonds without proof of origin, my body would be floating in the Hudson River by the next morning. I needed a channel that was absolutely discreet, one that operated in both the legal and illegal worlds. In my mind, a name flashed by: Valerie Sinclair. In my past life, this woman was an outlier in New York's high society. On the surface, she was the arrogant, rebellious heiress of the old money Sinclair family. But only a handful of top-tier elites knew that she secretly controlled North America's largest underground black market network, and was also a top-tier hacker capable of breaking into the Pentagon. Trenton had exhausted every effort to win her over. Yet he couldn't even manage to secure a meeting with her. If there is anyone who can take this cargo off my hands and has the power to launder this money for me, it's her. 3 a.m. An abandoned underground garage in Brooklyn, New York. This is one of the many black market trading hubs under Valerie's name. I pushed open the rust-stained iron door, and 4 burly bodyguards in suits, their waistlines bulging with concealed weapons, immediately blocked my path. Get lost, kid. This isn't a place for vagrants. The lead bodyguard looked at me as if I were trash. I didn't waste any words. I reached straight into my pocket, actually, into the system's infinite inventory, and grabbed a handful of diamonds, casually tossing them onto the concrete floor at their feet like pebbles. A dozen or so perfect diamonds, each the size of a pigeon's egg, refracted a dazzling light in the dim illumination. The crisp sound of them hitting the ground plunged the entire garage into an instant. Dead silence. The 4 bodyguards' eyes looked as if they were about to pop out of their sockets. Tell your boss I have a big deal to discuss. A deal big enough to let her become completely independent from that damn Chable family, I said flatly, hands tucked into the pockets of my hoodie. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in an underground VIP room whose luxurious decor felt completely out of place with the surroundings outside. The door opened. Valerie Sinclair walked in. She was wearing a deep V black leather trench coat paired with aggressively sharp stiletto red bottoms. Her voluminous blonde waves cascaded loosely over her shoulders, and her fiery red lips curved into an expression that was both dangerous and seductive. She was like a lethal siren, arrogant, cold, yet impossible to look away from. Jax Ford? A minor engineer who just started making a name for himself in the construction circles. One of Trenton's dogs. Valerie leaned against the desk, toying with the diamonds I had just tossed onto the floor, her sharp gaze scanning me. Tell me, engineer, where did you steal so many top-tier stones without a single impurity? Trenton isn't worthy of having me as a dog. He's only fit to be my stepping stone. I leaned back against the leather sofa, meeting her scrutinizing eyes directly. As for the source of these goods, you don't need to know. You only need to know that I have another ton of them. Crack. The wine glass in Valerie's hand developed a visible fracture as she gripped it with brute force. A ton? She stared me down, her previously languid gaze instantly turning lethally dangerous. Jax, if you're playing me, I guarantee you won't walk out of Brooklyn tonight. I gave a soft chuckle, stood up, and walked to the center of the spacious VIP room, which spanned dozens of square meters. Keep your eyes wide open, milady. I issued the command in my mind. In the next second, my hands began pouring outward frantically, as if performing a magic trick. Clatter, 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 accompanied by a crisp and pleasant clinking sound. Tens of thousands of fist-sized, flawless pure diamonds poured out from between my hands out of thin air, like a frenzied diamond rainstorm. In just over 10 seconds, a dazzling hill built of top-tier diamonds appeared abruptly in front of Valerie's desk. The intense, brilliant light illuminated almost every corner of the entire room. Valerie froze in place, her usually unflappable and exquisite face showing, for the first time, an expression of utter shock, as if she had seen a ghost. Her seductive red lips parted slightly, and her very breath seemed to hitch. This is impossible, she murmured to herself. Disregarding her composure, she stumbled toward the mountain of diamonds in her high heels, picking one up to inspect it closely under the light. Perfect facets, flawless clarity. This was no man-made industrial scrap. This was a miracle that would make even Mother Nature jealous. Now, can we talk about a partnership? Queen of the black market? I looked down at her, a hunter-like smile curling at the corners of my mouth. The first pot of gold is secured. Trenton, the countdown to your demise has begun. With the initial $500 million in startup capital laundered by Valerie through over a dozen offshore accounts, I registered a shell construction company named Genesis within a week. No engineering team, no construction crew, on paper. The entire company consisted of just me. But that was enough. Today is the public bidding day for New York City Hall's Hudson Riverfront Revitalization Project. With a budget as high as $12 billion, this project is the prime cut of meat Trenton Graves has been coveting for a long time, and the crucial straw intended to keep his crumbling real estate empire alive. In my past life, it was precisely to swallow this project without a hitch that he couldn't wait to bury me in the foundation after I discovered the engineering flaws. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the luxury conference room on the top floor of the Manhattan Municipal Building was buzzing with people. Trenton, dressed in an expensive bespoke suit with his hair meticulously slicked back, was holding a glass of champagne and chatting effortlessly among several politicians and business tycoons. The sight of his nauseatingly confident face made the lingering phantom pain in my lungs surge once again. Jax, what the hell is a loser like you doing here? A piercing sneer interrupted my thoughts. Mark, Trenton's top lackey and the chief architect of the Graves Group, was staring at me with a cold smirk while holding a coffee. This is a bidding site for a $10 billion project, not a place for a drafting dog like you to come begging for unpaid fees. Security, get this intruder out of here. Trenton also noticed the commotion. He turned his head, giving me a look as if he were staring at a dead man, then shook his head contemptuously, not even bothering to spare me a single word. Unrelated personnel? I'm here to participate in the bidding on behalf of Genesis Construction Company. I pulled the golden embossed bidding entry ticket from my pocket and waved it in front of Mark. A wave of suppressed laughter immediately erupted from the surrounding crowd. Genesis? A shell company with registered capital that isn't even a fraction of a decimal point of the Graves Group's. Jax, did you get hit in the head by a bag of cement? Mark laughed so hard he was doubling over. I ignored him and walked straight to an inconspicuous corner in the back of the conference room to sit down. Laugh. Go ahead and laugh all you want. You'll be crying soon enough. At 9:30, the bidding officially began. The director of the New York City Department of City Planning stood on the stage, reading the project requirements at length. What we need is an iconic architectural complex that can represent the spirit of New York for the next century. It must possess absolute environmental sustainability, superior seismic resistance, and unparalleled visual impact. Trenton's team was the first to take the stage. Mark presented an incredibly lavish PowerPoint, boasting extravagantly about everything from the exterior design to the construction timeline. It was undeniable that in my previous life, had it not been for the corner cutting, this design truly would have been enough to fool many people. Gentlemen of the jury, Trenton adjusted his tie with an air of arrogance as he delivered his closing statement. The Graves Group not only possesses the top design team, but we also control the largest construction material supply chain in the United States. In this bidding room, no one is more capable of taking on this project than we are. He was right. The other architectural firms, mere participants for show, didn't even have the courage to ask a question. The entire venue had become Trenton's personal stage. Next, we invite the representative from the final bidder, Genesis Architecture, to the stage. The host's voice carried a hint of unconcealed impatience. Every eye in the room fixed on me, most filled with the mocking amusement one might reserve for a clown. Trenton was already preparing to pop the champagne in celebration. I stood up unhurriedly and walked onto the stage. I didn't have a USB drive in my hand, nor did I carry a thick stack of construction blueprints. I simply stood quietly in front of the large screen, looking down at the big shots in the audience who thought they had everything under control. Mr. Jacks? Where is your presentation PPT? The judge asked, frowning. I don't need those deceptive slides. I looked directly into Trenton's sinister eyes, a cold smirk playing at the corners of my mouth. Since this is a bidding process, why don't we play for real? I took a deep breath and instantly activated the system in my mind. Creative mode command. Structure block load. Target coordinates. Open space in the center of the conference room. Holographic projection model. Activate. V-room. Accompanied by a low hum that only I could hear. The space of the entire conference room seemed to be warped by some incomprehensible force. Under the terrified and shocked gazes of everyone present, a translucent holographic image emitting a faint purple glow appeared out of thin air above the long conference table without any warning. It was a breathtaking miniature of a futuristic urban complex. Well-arranged skyscrapers, green ecological corridors suspended in midair, and streamlined anti-seismic structures. This wasn't some dry PPT. It was a lifelike 3D holographic projection, where one could even see the water splashing from the miniature fountains within the model. Good heavens! What kind of glasses-free 3D technology is this? One judge exclaimed, accidentally knocking over his coffee cup in his excitement. The entire conference room erupted instantly. The arrogance on Trenton's face froze. He stared at the incredible model suspended in midair, as if he were seeing a ghost. This is just a blueprint, I said, snapping my fingers. Mr. Graves was just boasting about his invincible material supply chain. Well, why don't we take a look at the materials I'm using? I walked to the conference table and gave a casual wave of my hand. Creative mode. Item summoning. Clang! A massive cube, 1 meter in length and width and deep black all over, slammed out of thin air onto the hard oak conference table, leaving a deep crack in the wood. Obsidian! What kind of new alloy is this? Several materials science experts looked as if their eyes were about to pop out of their heads, immediately rushing forward to get a closer look. This is a super-strength architectural cornerstone exclusively developed by Genesis. I casually made up a name, looking at Trenton, whose face had turned ashen. The hardness of this material is more than 10 times that of standard military-grade explosion-proof armor, and it is completely immune to high temperatures and corrosion. Using this for the foundation, even if the Hudson River floods or an 8-magnitude earthquake strikes, the building won't show even a single crack. Absurd. This completely defies the laws of physics. You're just performing a magic trick, Mark shouted at me, exasperated and furious. Is that so? I looked at him coldly. Mark, feel free to grab a chainsaw and try it yourself. If you can leave even a single scratch on it, I'll withdraw from the bidding immediately. 10 minutes later, when 4 or 5 security personnel, drenched in sweat, took turns using industrial-grade cutters and heavy-duty impact drills but failed to even scratch the surface of the obsidian, the entire bidding venue fell into a deathly silence. The judges' eyes turned bloodshot. They looked at the holographic architectural model, then at that indestructible new material, and their breathing became rapid. This is simply a miracle in architectural history. Mr. Jacks, how long is your company's construction cycle? What is the material cost? The director of the planning bureau asked with a trembling voice. I smiled slightly and threw out my final, and most lethal, trump card. As long as the funding is in place, the construction period will be 0 days. This is because we utilize the latest modular quantum printing technology. Furthermore, the total quote is only half of what the Graves Group is charging. The entire room erupted in an uproar. The champagne glass in Trenton's hand fell to the ground with a loud shatter, smashing into pieces. His proud capital monopoly was torn apart before my system cheat-like dimensional strike, leaving not even a shred of dignity behind. Looking at Trenton's face, which looked worse than if he had swallowed a ton of flies, I smiled with satisfaction. I've drawn first blood in this game. With a bid slashed in half and a technical demonstration bordering on alien technology, Genesis Corporation secured the multi-billion-dollar Hudson River project without suspense. The moment the bidding results were announced, I could clearly sense that the initial contempt in Trenton's eyes had vanished. replaced by the naked, murderous intent of a wolf backed into a corner. I know this old fox all too well. When capital fails to crush an opponent, he doesn't hesitate to resort to the most primitive and bloody violence. In my past life, I died at the hands of this exact kind of crude physical elimination, but this time, the roles of predator and prey have been completely reversed. 11 p.m. Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan. To lure the snake out of its hole, I deliberately declined Valerie's offer to send several elite mercenaries for protection and walked alone into a dim, narrow alleyway devoid of surveillance. The cold late autumn wind swirled discarded newspapers across the ground. The pungent stench of urine mixed with the smell of rotting trash created an atmosphere that was practically the standard opening for a murder scene in a Hollywood B-movie. Click. The faint sound of metal rubbing against leather drifted from about 10 meters behind me. Here it comes. I didn't look back, maintaining a steady pace as I walked forward. Judging by the footsteps, there were 4 of them. They were well trained and light on their feet, clearly not the street punks who only knew how to rob people for spare change, but professional killers who had truly seen blood. Jax Ford. A raspy, low voice echoed through the alley. Mr. Trenton sends his regards. He thought your magic show today was brilliant, but he also feels that geniuses are better off short-lived. I stopped in my tracks and slowly turned around. By the dim glow of the streetlights, I saw 4 burly men dressed in all-black tactical gear. They fanned out, completely cutting off my retreat. Each held a suppressed Glock, their dark muzzles aimed steadily at my head and chest. There was no nonsense. No classic trope of a villain talking too much. The bald lead assassin simply pulled the trigger. Asterisk thwip. Thwip. Asterisk 2 dull gunshots. If I were still that weak engineer from my past life, I would have 2 bloody holes through my forehead by now. But under the god view of creative mode, the trajectories of the bullets are as slow as tadpoles swimming through water. I didn't dodge, because there was simply no need. Command confirmed. Creative mode. Obsidian placement. Coordinates locked. Boom! At the very instant those 2 bullets were about to strike the center of my forehead, a pure black obsidian wall, 3 meters high, 3 meters wide, and of staggering thickness, rose from the ground without warning. Like a divine miracle. Clang! Clang! The 2 9mm hollow-point rounds slammed violently into the indestructible surface of the obsidian, without even producing a single spark. They were instantly crushed into twisted scraps of scrap metal, falling feebly to the ground. The 4 assassins froze in their tracks, the eyes behind their masks filled with a terror, as if they had just seen a ghost. Fuck! What the hell is this? Where did he get this blast wall from? The bald assassin roared, his voice cracking. But this was only the beginning. Everyone, since Mr. Trenton was sincere enough to send you to see me in the middle of the night, wouldn't it be quite rude of me if I didn't offer something in return? My voice drifted out eerily from behind the obsidian wall. System. Activate rapid construction mode. Load blueprint. Labyrinth of despair. Material. Obsidian. Range. 100-meter radius. Execute immediately. Boom. 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 The earth began to tremble violently, as if a series of underground explosions were occurring. In this already narrow alleyway, massive obsidian blocks erupted from the ground one after another, combining, assembling, and extending at a speed that defied all laws of physics and spatial common sense. A mere 5 seconds. Only 5 seconds. The 4 assassins didn't even have the chance to return fire or turn and flee before their surroundings underwent a cataclysmic transformation. Towering black stone walls completely blotted out the moonlight, carving the alley into countless narrow, oppressive dead ends that seemed capable of swallowing souls. In every direction stood pitch-black obsidian, shimmering with a cold luster. There was no way out, no sense of direction, and even the air seemed to have been sucked dry by the sheer intensity of the pressure. Damn it! We're trapped. Fire! Blow this wall open for me. The bald assassin fell into a state of extreme panic, frantically pulling the trigger at the obsidian wall in front of him. Pew 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 pew. A hail of bullets struck the obsidian, leaving nothing but a few imperceptible white marks. They even pulled out high-explosive grenades, but following a muffled explosion, the seemingly simple black stone wall remained unshakable, doing nothing more than leaving the men with bleeding eardrums and faces covered in dust. This was the hardest substance beneath the bedrock. Forget grenades. Even if Trenton brought a heavy tank over, he could only stare at it and sigh in despair. I moved through this labyrinth of my own creation as if strolling through my own backyard. My vision could pierce through the blocks, clearly seeing the 4 killers frantically crashing about like headless flies, screaming and cursing, before finally collapsing onto the ground in utter despair. I walked up to the wall where the bald killer was trapped and spoke coldly. Now, tell me, what is Trenton planning to do next? Hearing my voice, the bald killer lunged toward the wall as if grasping at a lifeline, his voice breaking into a completely shattered sob. I don't know. I really don't know. You're a devil. You're a devil. Let me out. Trenton only told us to deal with you. He said if we failed, he would initiate Project Scorched Earth. Project Scorched Earth? I narrowed my eyes. He's going after Miss Valerie. He said that as long as he destroys your funding chain, That $10 billion project will still be his. Please, I've told you everything I know. Just let me out. Trenton, you really are as despicable as ever. Since you can't win in a fair fight, you've started resorting to kidnapping and assassination. Haven't you? Unfortunately, you've chosen the wrong opponent. In this world, I am the god who can rewrite the rules at any time. Stay right here. That is, if you can survive until the police find you. I let out a cold sneer. And with a single thought, an obsidian block surged from the ground beneath my feet, hoisting me upward. With a few swift leaps, I moved like a ghost in the night, vaulting directly out of this labyrinth of despair and vanishing into the New York skyline. Valerie is in danger. The game has entered its second half. Manhattan's Upper East Side. Valerie's secret safe house. By the time I arrived, the air was thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and a faint scent of blood. The bulletproof glass windows of the safe house had been shattered by heavy fire, and the corpses of several mercenaries in black tactical gear lay scattered across the living room. Valerie, I growled, drawing the enchanted diamond sword from my inventory that had remained unused until now, and began searching every room with high alert. Cough, cough. Stop shouting. I'm not dead yet. A weak but still somewhat defiant voice came from the direction of the basement. I rushed over and found her in a corner of the wine cellar. Valerie's signature black leather trench coat was soaked through on one side with blood, and there was a visible gunshot wound on her left arm. But her eyes still flashed like those of an infuriated leopardess as she tightly gripped a desert eagle with an empty magazine. That old bastard Trenton actually deployed the Stinger mercenary group. It seems we've really pushed him to the edge, Valerie said through gritted teeth, her forehead drenched in cold sweat. Since he wants to play big, we'll play with him to the very end. I walked over and swept her up into my arms. It's not safe here anymore. Trenton's second wave of reinforcements could arrive at any moment. We have to go. Just as we burst out of the safe house's back alley, the piercing wail of sirens and the roar of heavy SUV engines closed in from both ends of the street. 6 armored Range Rovers, some even mounted with heavy machine guns on their roofs, completely sealed off every exit on the block. Fuck, we're boxed in. Valerie scanned the surroundings, a flicker of despair crossing her eyes. Jax, put me down. You might still be able to break out on your own. If I'm dead, Trenton won't get that money anyway. Shut up. In my game, letting a teammate die isn't an option. I set her down in front of a rusted-out 1970s Ford Mustang at the street corner, a wreck that had been abandoned for God knows how many years. The car didn't even have all 4 wheels, and weeds were actually sprouting from under the hood. What are you doing? Do you expect this heap of scrap metal to fly us out of here? Valerie gasped, wincing in pain. Something like that. I grinned, a flash of madness erupting in my eyes. System. Activate redstone circuit module. Target. Ford Mustang. Material replacement. Obsidian armor. Power source modification. Infinite redstone block matrix. Execute. Vroom. As my command was issued, the once dilapidated Ford Mustang erupted in a blinding flash of red light. Under Valerie's incredulous gaze, the rust on the body vanished instantly, replaced by a seamless layer of deep, indestructible obsidian armor. In the previously empty engine bay, an energy matrix composed of dozens of redstone blocks appeared out of thin air, pulsing with a piercing red glow. No gasoline needed, no internal combustion engine required. The power output of this thing now was more violent than a space shuttle. Get in. Hold on tight. I shoved Valerie into the passenger seat and leaped into the cockpit myself. The interior was still worn out, lacking even seatbelts, but the sensation of the steering wheel in my hands felt as if I were gripping the very pulse of the world. Fire! Turn that piece of junk into a sieve! The mercenary leader's roar echoed through the street. Rat-tat-tat-tat! A dense hail of heavy machine gun fire poured onto the Mustang's body like a torrential rain, but the bullets, powerful enough to tear through armored vehicles, left nothing but a trail of sparks against the obsidian shell, failing to even scratch the paint. I slammed my foot down on the makeshift redstone acceleration pedal. Boom! There was no low rumble of an internal combustion engine, only a high-pitched shriek resembling a burst of pulsed energy. This Mustang, magically modified with redstone technology, launched like a black cannonball. Its 0 to 60 acceleration took less than a second, and the massive G-force pinned Valerie and me firmly against our seats. Fuck! What the hell is this thing? Valerie screamed, gripping the door handle for dear life. Ahead were 2 armored Land Rovers parked sideways across the road, attempting to intercept us. I didn't slow down, nor did I even turn the steering wheel. I simply pushed the redstone power to its absolute limit. Bang! Crunch! Traveling at over 100 kilometers per hour, carrying the indestructible weight of obsidian, the Mustang sliced through those 2 multi-ton Land Rovers like a hot knife through butter, sending them hurtling into the air to disintegrate and explode mid-flight. Trenton, do you like the fireworks I sent you? I sneered, flooring the accelerator, driving this black beast from the game world. I charged out of the sea of fire, staging a legendary high-speed chase through the midnight streets of New York that would go down in history. The Redstone Mustang was like a bolt of black lightning across the empty streets of Manhattan, leaving the pursuing mercenaries far behind. But this was no long-term solution. Trenton controlled half of New York's underworld. As long as we remained above ground, we were constantly at risk of being locked onto by his drones and snipers. Go to the abandoned fallout shelter beneath Grand Central Terminal. That's my most secret safe house, Valerie said, clutching her bleeding wound, her face as pale as a sheet of paper. That dump won't stop Trenton's heavy bunker busters. I glanced at her and jerked the steering wheel, sending the car charging down a ramp leading into an abandoned subway tunnel. I'm taking you somewhere truly safe, a fortress that even the gods couldn't breach. The car came to a halt deep within the darkness of the tunnel. I picked up the weakened Valerie and, guided by the faint shimmer of the redstone matrix, descended the weathered stairs until we entered an abandoned sewage system at the deepest point beneath Manhattan. The sun never shines here, and the air is thick with the smell of mildew. Valerie leaned against the wall and gave a bitter laugh. This is the safe haven you talked about? This rat hole? Jax, am I really going to die in this gutter with you? Die. No one is dying until we've sent Trenton to hell. I gently laid her down on a relatively dry platform, then stood up and turned to face the vast, dark expanse of the underground space. System. Activate rapid build mode. Target. Ultimate shelter. Mainframe material. Bedrock. Interior decoration. Quartz blocks and glowstone. Execute immediately. Rumble. The underground of all Manhattan felt as if it were undergoing a minor earthquake. Valerie's eyes widened in horror as she witnessed this scene, which could only be described as a miracle. In the massive subterranean void before her, blocks with eerie black and white textures materialized out of thin air. These blocks stacked and interlocked with profound geometric beauty, and in less than a minute, an indestructible underground fortress covering hundreds of square meters rose from the ground. Bedrock. In Minecraft, this is the ultimate substance located at the very bottom of the world. Absolutely indestructible. No conventional weapons, explosives, or even nuclear bombs can inflict even the slightest bit of damage upon it. In this real world, it is the synonym for absolute defense. What on earth is this? Valerie even forgot the pain of her wounds. She reached out with a trembling hand, touching the cold, rough surface of the bedrock. It was a substance that transcended all of her understanding. Our new home. Or rather, Trenton's nightmare command post. I snapped my fingers, and the glowstone inside the fortress instantly lit up, illuminating the interior as bright as day. The floors, paved with snow-white quartz blocks, were spotless, and there were even comfortable beds and lounge areas pieced together from various blocks. Just as we had barely settled in, a dull and violent explosion suddenly erupted from directly overhead. Boom! Boom! Dust trickled down from the cracks in the tunnel. Trenton's mercenaries had clearly used some kind of geological detection equipment to lock onto our position and had begun an indiscriminate bombardment using heavy bunker busters. They found us. Valerie instinctively cringed. Don't be afraid. Even if they sink the entirety of Manhattan, not a single crack will appear here. I walked to the fortress's massive iron-wrought gate with a cold sneer, peering upward through the pre-installed observation port. Several high-priced bunker busters struck the top of the fortress in rapid succession. However, aside from a few dull clangs, not even a speck of bedrock dust was dislodged. The mercenaries above had clearly descended into a desperate frenzy, incessantly calling for reinforcements as they cycled through rocket launchers and C4 explosives. Yet, they failed to leave so much as a scratch on this bedrock barrier. Their expressions must be priceless right now. Valerie looked up at the rock-solid ceiling and finally let out a long sigh of relief. As her frayed nerves finally relaxed, she leaned weakly against my shoulder. This is just the appetizer. I pulled an enchanted golden apple from my inventory and handed it to her. Eat this. Now, it's our turn to strike back. Watching her take a bite of the golden apple as her wounds healed at a pace visible to the naked eye, I clenched my fists. The defense was set. It was time to hunt that old fox. The Graves Group headquarters, standing beneath the Manhattan night sky, resembled a black sword piercing the stars, exuding an air of inviolable arrogance. That old fox Trenton was currently hiding in a reinforced, blast-proof safe room on the 120th floor. The entire building had been surrounded by his mercenaries in layer upon layer of security, forming an iron fortress that not even a fly could penetrate. Unfortunately for them, I am no fly. I am a god with cheats enabled. System. Bring up the brewing stand interface. Extract. Potion of invisibility, 8 o'clock. Potion of strength 2. As the command was issued, 2 glass bottles filled with strange liquids appeared out of thin air in my hands. One swirled with silver-gray mist, while the other seethed with a crimson, blood-like glow. I tilted my head back and downed both potions in one go. A bone-chilling sensation instantly spread throughout my body. Looking down, I watched as my hands, torso, and legs turned transparent at a visible rate, until they vanished completely into the air. Immediately following that, a violent surge of power, nearly tearing my muscles apart, erupted from deep within my bone marrow. I casually grabbed a piece of discarded rebar nearby. With a slight squeeze, The thumb-thick steel bar twisted like a noodle under my grip. This feeling is absolutely incredible. My voice echoed in the air. Yet not a soul could be seen. I didn't use the main entrance. Nor did I go through the ventilation ducts. I arrived beneath the glass curtain wall on the outside of the building and pulled a stack of ender pearls from my inventory. These were divine artifacts used for teleportation in the game. Whoosh, crack. I aimed at a terrace halfway up the building and threw a pearl emitting a faint green glow with all my might. The moment the pearl shattered, my body felt as if it were being violently yanked by an invisible force, and the scene before my eyes instantly distorted. A second later, I was standing firmly on the 60th floor terrace. Repeating the process, I flickered across the exterior walls of the skyscraper like a ghost. In less than 2 minutes, I was already standing in the corridor of the 120th floor. At the end of the corridor lay Trenton's safe house. Standing outside the door were 4 elite bodyguards, heavily armed and equipped with tactical night vision goggles. In my past life, these were the very same guys who pinned me down next to the concrete mixer, forcing me to watch as I was buried alive. Hey, fellas, anyone got a lighter today? I lowered my voice and let out a sharp, loud whistle that echoed through the empty corridor. Who's there? The 4 bodyguards raised their weapons instantly, their infrared lasers sweeping frantically across the hallway. But in their night vision goggles, there was nothing but empty air. Asterisk splat. Asterisk, a bone-chilling sound of a blade slicing through flesh rang out. An enchanted diamond sword, glowing with purple runic light, sharpness V, materialized out of thin air in my hand. Before the bodyguard closest to me could even pull the trigger, his head, still encased in a ballistic helmet, was severed cleanly from his body. But strangely, there was no spray of blood, nor any gruesome scene of flying flesh. The moment the diamond sword swept across his neck, his body disintegrated into countless tiny, pixelated red cubes, just like a mob being killed in a game. They clattered to the ground and quickly vanished into thin air. The remaining 3 bodyguards went completely ballistic. Damn it! Where is he? Fire! Blind fire! Rat-tat-tat-tat! Muzzle flashes erupted in the corridor as bullets struck the walls, sending debris flying everywhere. But I had already circled behind them with silent steps. Under the enhancement of the strength potion, I felt like a humanoid Tyrannosaurus Rex. I swung the diamond sword, its blade carving a lethal purple arc through the air. Swish! Swish! 2 more slashes. The 2 bodyguards didn't even have time to scream before they instantly dissolved into a pile of pixel blocks. As the last remaining bodyguard watched his companions vanish into thin air, his mental defenses completely collapsed. He dropped his gun and slumped to the ground, shrieking, "Don't kill me, devil! You're a devil!" I walked up to him just as the invisibility potion wore off, my figure slowly materializing in the air. "Go back and tell your boss that the cement in the foundation is a bit cold, and I've come to collect some heating expenses from him." I let out a cold sneer, slamming the spine of the blade hard against the back of his neck. Watching him collapse into a heap like a pile of mud, I turned around to face the titanium alloy blast door that was claimed to be capable of withstanding C4 explosives. I didn't look for a key, nor did I use explosives. I simply reached out my right hand and pressed it gently against the door. Creative mode. Break block. Pop. With a crisp, strange sound. That titanium alloy blast door, worth millions of dollars, along with its entire frame, instantly transformed into a floating dropped item and was collected into my inventory. The door was open. Trenton Graves sat behind his desk, clutching a golden revolver, his entire body trembling uncontrollably. When he saw me standing there, unscathed, without so much as a wrinkle in my clothes, that face, once defined by insufferable arrogance, finally twisted into a mask of sheer terror. "Good evening, Mr. Graves. It's time to settle the score." I stepped toward him, 1 pace at a time, carrying a diamond sword that shimmered with a purple glow. Bang! 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 Deafening gunshots echoed through the spacious penthouse office. Trenton frantically pulled the trigger of his custom golden revolver until the firing pin let out a hollow click against an empty chamber. 6 high-caliber magnum rounds had struck my chest and forehead with precision. However, against the absolute physical invulnerability of creative mode, these bullets, powerful enough to punch through steel plates, acted as if they had hit an invisible field. They lost all kinetic energy instantly and dropped onto the expensive handmade carpet like a few pathetic soybeans. I didn't even blink, continuing to walk forward while carrying the diamond sword that emitted a purple glow. "No, this is impossible. What kind of monster are you?" Terrified, Trenton threw his gun aside, his legs giving way as he slumped directly into his oversized leather swivel chair. This financial tycoon, who once commanded the winds and clouds on Wall Street, was now a mess of snot and tears, looking as pathetic as a stray dog cornered in a dead end. "Monster? No, Trenton. I'm just that perfect load-bearing pillar you personally poured into the foundation." I walked up to his desk and split the $1,000,000 rosewood table in 2 with a single swing, the blocky debris scattering across the floor and sending him scrambling back in a frenzy. "Jax, listen to me. Don't kill me." Trenton knelt on the ground, kowtowing to me desperately. "You need money, right? The Graves Group has 50 billion in assets. I'll transfer it all to you. The yachts, the mansions, all the shares. Just let me go. And I'll be your dog from now on. Looking at his disgusting, groveling state, the suffocating sense of despair I felt while trapped in concrete in my past life finally vanished completely. 50 billion? Trenton, your vision is too narrow. I casually pulled a stack of diamond blocks from my inventory and threw them in front of him like trash. The capital empire you're so proud of is worth less than a pile of pixelated garbage in my eyes. You love building towers, don't you? You think this 120-story, multi-billion-dollar Graves Tower is your immortal monument. I looked down at him, a flicker of cold mockery in my eyes. Today, I'm going to show you what a real shoddy construction project looks like. I did not kill him with a sword. That would have been too easy for him. I intend to utterly erase his empire, both physically and spiritually. I slowly raised my right hand, awakening the highest authority console within my mind. System, activate world edit commands. Ding! Advanced commands are ready. Host, please define the target area. Target, the entire perimeter of the Graves Group headquarters building. Execution command. /fill replace. Replace all internal high-strength steel reinforcement, concrete load-bearing walls, and titanium alloy keels with common dirt blocks. Command confirmed. Physical laws undergoing forced rewriting. Replacement complete. Boom, crack, crack, crack. At the very instant the system notification faded, the entire skyscraper let out a blood-curdling, desperate wail, like that of a prehistoric behemoth in its death throes. Trenton looked up in horror, watching helplessly as the indestructible blast walls and marble load-bearing columns around him lost all their metallic luster in an instant, turning into loose black mud that crumbled at a touch, stripped of the support of all high-strength materials. The skyscraper, weighing hundreds of thousands of tons, could not withstand its own terrifying mass. The walls began to crack frantically. The ceilings rained down like a mudslide, and the entire building began to collapse inward with irreversible momentum. No! My building! My empire! Trenton let out a heart-wrenching scream as the floor beneath his feet disintegrated into soil, sending him screaming into a bottomless abyss. He buried me alive once. Today, I am holding the grandest burial for him with 120 stories of dirt blocks. Double-tap the spacebar to enable flight mode. A split second before the building completely disintegrated, I pushed off lightly with my toes. My body broke free from the shackles of gravity. Soaring upward like a deity, I smashed through the remaining glass curtain wall and hovered amidst the dazzling night sky of Manhattan. Thousands of feet in the air, I looked down coldly at the scene below. Rumble, accompanied by a massive earthquake that shook the entirety of New York City. That arrogant multi-billion-dollar landmark transformed into a colossal pile of dust and debris amidst the terrified screams of countless citizens. Trenton and his filthy empire of sin were buried forever beneath this heap of cheap earth, never to rise again. The first light of dawn just managed to tear through the night shroud over Manhattan. I slowly descended onto a piece of high ground at the edge of the ruins. There, a black redstone Mustang sat quietly. Valerie leaned against the car door, her blonde hair dancing in the morning breeze. She looked at the ruins before her, which resembled a scene from a disaster blockbuster, and then at me descending from the sky. In those eyes that were always defiant and untamed, there was now nothing left but deep shock and infatuation. You really tore a hole in the sky of this city. She lightly bit her red lip, her voice trembling slightly. I walked up to her, closing all the system interfaces and blocks. No, Valerie. I reached out and wrapped my arm around her slender waist, pulling her tightly into my embrace. I was just clearing out some eyesore trash from this sandbox. Under the golden red light of the rising sun, atop the ruins of Trenton's collapsed multi-billion-dollar empire, I leaned down and kissed her fatally seductive red lips. The grudge has been settled, but this is only the beginning. From this day forward, to hell with the laws of physics, and to hell with capital monopolies. Before my code and my blocks, this world shall no longer hold any secrets. The age of gods belonging to me, Jax, has only just begun. The end.